What you doing?
Ran out of space on my phone, so I'm deleting some stuff. Bye, singing dog. Bye, goal.
I pronounce you.
Bye, wedding ceremony.
Stop. At Metro PCS, you get 2 free phones with twice as much memory.
Really?
Don't say bye to your memories. Switch to Metro PCS and get 2 free LG K20 Plus phones with 32 gigs when you switch 2 lines. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figure it out. Coverage not available in some areas. Sales tax not included in phone price. Excludes numbers on the T-Mobile network. See store for details and terms and conditions.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Sin's Chat Corner. I have a very, very special announcement to make, obviously, in case you guys didn't get a chance to read my write-up today. We're going to be interviewing Sister Grace Miller. She's the individual, and I should say the initiator, of the House of Mercy, which is located in Rochester, New York. I actually want to send a big shout-out to both Jules Ray and Ashley, if you happen to be listening to this interview, because without the both of you, I would not have been cognizant of this situation. I live in Wisconsin, of course. And this is in New York City, and I have dear friends that live there, and sometimes they tip me off to things that go on, injustices, etc. And so today's a very, very important show. We're going to be talking and highlighting about the homeless and what we can do to try to aid this situation. So without further ado, let's get Sister Grace on the line and start speaking with her. Hello, Sister. Hi.
Hi, how are you, Cindy?
I'm doing just fine. I'm very anxious and very nervous to talk to you.
Oh, you are?
I am very, very, I've watched your interviews. I see how you speak, and you're very vocal, and you're very versed, and you're just an incredible lady. So I'm very nervous right now.
Oh, thank you.
You're very welcome. I have a bunch of different questions for you. So I kind of wanted to start off, first and foremost, I know that most oftentimes people recognize you for your work relative to the House of Mercy. So I kind of hope that you might mention to the listeners, maybe tell them a little bit about your backstory, kind of like the events that led up to your current vocation right now.
Well, I opened up the House of Mercy in 1985, October 1st, 1985, because I saw many people just hanging out on the streets like sheep without a shepherd. You know, I saw many people suffering on the streets, and I would pick up homeless people and take them to homeless shelters, and the shelters wouldn't accept them. So I knew something needed to be done. And then there was one winter when 3 shelters had opened up, and it was very cold this one wintry night, and I saw a man walking down the street, and I thought, he's going to freeze to death. And then I saw him heading towards one of the shelters. And I saw that there were 2 men standing outside the shelters about 9 o'clock at night, and I thought, well, why doesn't the shelter open up earlier? Because, you know, it's so cold outside. Well, they didn't. So I took the 3 men and put them in my car, and we drove around the city. I did it to keep them warm. And then when I went back to the shelter, they refused to take the homeless men in. And I said, well, there's no place else for them to go, and I had to insist. And they said no. They had 10. They would not take in one more. So I asked them if they would call another shelter and see if that shelter would take them in. And the second shelter said no. They had 7. They would not take anyone. So then I insisted, and the first shelter took 1, and I still had 2 more men left. And I didn't ask them to call another shelter because over the phone it's too easy to say no. So I brought them to the 3rd shelter, and they refused. And I said, there's no place else for them to go. They refused, and I said, well, then I'm not leaving unless you take them in. And they took them in. And all I could think of that night, so it was like no room in the inn, you know.
Right.
So that led me to believe that there needed to be a place that was open 24 hours where homeless people could come in any time of the day or night and not worry about being refused or rejected.
Oh, definitely.
So then I submitted a proposal to the Sisters of Mercy and told them I wanted to open up a place in the inner city. And they gave me a grant for $20,000 and said I would have to do my own fundraising, which I had never, ever done in my whole life. You know, but I didn't tell them that. I just took the money and ran and opened up the House of Mercy.
Very well put. I just kind of went with it and went along. Okay, I've got you. Now, how long have you actually been? Now, you're an ordained clergy member, is that correct?
I'm a Sister of Mercy, a professed Sister of Mercy. Mm-hmm.
And how long have you held that capacity?
Have I been a sister?
Yes.
Well, yes. Over 50 years. I don't know how many years, just I know it's over 50.
Yes.
I don't keep track anymore.
A little over 40. I was going to say, we're a little bit older 40 there. I was just going to say. Now, I know this might sound like a strange question, but sometimes I just come up with these things in my head, and I'm like, I want to know if there's been any reaction. You know, typically when someone says, I'm going to, like today, I'm interviewing Sister Grace. So there is an aura about you. I'm not sure if you know this or not, but when someone says sister, kind of like father so-and-so, we look at you in a certain perception. So I've often wondered to myself, are there mixed reviews? Obviously, of course, we know that you have been arrested because of your endeavors, unfortunately. Does that ever pose issues for individuals where they kind of look at you and think, you're in a certain capacity, these sorts of things shouldn't happen? Do you follow my lead here?
Yes, well, I know that when I was first arrested, this is about the sixth time, but when I was first arrested as a Sister of Mercy, some people believe that as a Sister of Mercy, I should never have been arrested, that was against, the decorum of a religious. Right. And I did get that kind of reaction.
Okay. And now, of course, obviously... Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, but, I believe in following the Spirit of the Lord, and I know if... I believe very strongly in justice for all. And so if I think there's a matter of real injustice, then I'm going to step in and suffer the consequences. And if it means being arrested, I'll be arrested. If it means going to jail, I'll go to jail. I'm always concerned about what happens back at the House of Mercy
right,
if I'm not there. Yes, but I have a staff that can cover.
Okay, I gotcha. Okay. Now, as all of you are probably aware, orchestrating and maintaining any business, and you know this, of course, it takes a colony of different volunteers. Now, approximately how many staff the House of Mercy is present?
Well, right now, I have 2 paid staff members. And I have, and I'm not paid because the Sisters of Mercy take care of me. And then I have another person who is working with us. He's partly on welfare. But and then we have a core of volunteers that work with us. When I first opened up the House of Mercy, it was amazing to see how people that we helped came back and said they wanted to help us. And so we still have even some volunteers from, the first day we opened until now, plus more people who come in and they say, I want to help, I want to be a part of this, and I want to do the same work as the House of Mercy. So we do have a core of volunteers who are here every single day and keep the operations of the House of Mercy going.
I gotcha. Now, if I were to ask you, is there such a thing as a current criteria, let's say, to qualify? Let's say somebody walks in and says, you know what, I want to volunteer, I want to do something to aid. Do you have certain criteria, certain characteristics or things that they have to have?
What we do is sit down with them. I always want to meet with them first and see exactly where they're coming from, what they're interested in, and if they'll fit into, our mission. So first is that interview, and so that they'll understand, what the mission of the House of Mercy is. But usually there is a place because people that are attracted to the House of Mercy know what our mission is. We're spiritually based, and what we do is really love everyone who walks into the house. We accept them just the way that they are, and then we try to work with them from, their standpoint, from where they are.
Oh, certainly. Of course. Makes perfect sense to me. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about your pal and your partner. You were mentioning C.W. Eastley, because I've seen you do an interview with him. Tell us a little bit about him and how you ended up becoming partners in this endeavor.
All right. He's here if you want to speak to him.
Oh, sure. If you'd like to speak, I'd be more than happy to talk to him. Sure.
Okay. You want to hold on? I'll get him?
Sure. That's fine.
Okay, hold on.
Sure.
Hi, how are you? Come on, CW.
I guess I'm kicked out. What is she about?
Okay, he's coming, but I just want to say that, and he'll probably tell you this, that he originally came into the House of Mercy for help about 2 years after I opened up. But he can tell you that story. Okay?
Sure, of course. I understand.
And he's here. Okay. He's here right now, all right?
Yay!
Okay, hold on.
Thanks.
I'll get the door for you.
Who's this for? Hello.
Hi, CW. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing just fine, thank you. I was just asking Sister Grace a question in reference to you, and I kind of wanted to let the listening audience know how the two of you ended up becoming pals and partners in this endeavor called the House of Mercy. I thought it'd be kind of neat to hear your background and how you got into it.
Well, we go back about 27. Well, actually, I've known her longer than that. She's my daughter's godmother.
Oh, neat. Okay.
Yeah. And then about 2 years after she was open, I ran upon hard times, and I was looking for a place to live and no place to go. So I went over, and it took me about 4 days to see her. Okay. And finally I saw her, and I explained my plight to her. She refused to give me what I wanted, but she gave me refuge. So with that, I rented a place along Lake Avenue, and I started to volunteer for her. And with my background, I used to work in supply. I also used to do food service, and I also worked out at a floor shop over in Buffalo in payroll. So I guess that's all tied us together.
I gotcha.
So it was Thanksgiving Day, I remember.
Oh, okay.
And she came in and I started to cut meat for her.
Oh, really?
And for the holidays, for people who was issuing food to. And it just led from one thing, led to another. From that, I started to manage the vehicles, cook the food, order the food. It was ordered from Food Link, I think, at that time, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Then that went on for about 4 years. And because the Department of Social Service knew I was volunteer for Sister Grace, and said as long as I worked for her, I didn't have to look for other means of employment. Mm-hmm. But then the Sisters of Mercy decided to hire me on the auspice of Sister Grace. Okay. And I think Sister Sheila was the one that hired me. And everything else is pretty much history. We've been oil and water ever since then.
Oh, my gosh, look at that. How neat. And now, because you've been there for a number of years, and obviously you come from a background, as you said, you fell upon hard times. Do you think, if I were to ask you, if there's some misnomer or what's the number one thing, what is one fallacy about the homeless that there's so many different fallacies that people carry about the homeless people. What are one or two things maybe you can touch on about that?
Well, one of the things primarily is mental illness.
Okay.
And if you recall, a few years ago when they closed Rochester Psych Center on Elmwood, and they put people out in the community, if they were males, there was no vasectomies and there was no tube ligation for women. And I really and truly believe, in my honest opinion, that here we are 35 or 40 years later. It's part of that same syndrome that's causing the problem, plus the over-the-counter drugs and street drugs and mental illness. Okay. They're not criminals, but they just can't really measure up.
Okay. Alcohol an issue too?
Well, alcohol has always been a problem, but, I mean, the drugs was the latest thing to come about. Alcohol has been a problem since Prohibition days.
I've gotcha, of course. Another question I had, since you come from this background, of course, or at one point in your life, if we're walking down the street and we see a homeless person, what are they really looking for? I mean, obviously, it comes down first and foremost to certainly, of course, a donation, et cetera, but how can we make a homeless person feel like more of a real person, if that makes sense to you?
Well, my take is this, and this has always been my take, is I don't penny a person off, because giving him change for his pocket is only giving him a quick fix to go into the next area. But sitting down and having a conversation with him, buying him a cup of coffee, learning what his life is really all about, kind of getting inside of the person's head. Most people think that I'll give him $1. Okay, they're just a bum, give him $1. You'd be surprised. There's some very good talent out there in those raw people out there who ran upon bad times in their life. And basically what they need is just someone to, sometimes they need to lend an ear. They need somebody to dump all that on. Sometimes they need to be left alone. I discovered that here when we had a guy, Abraham, who we just put in an apartment. Abraham was with us for 15 years. Come to find out that Abraham wasn't his name at all. His name was DeVern Gamble.
Oh, my goodness.
But now we've got him into an apartment, and he's doing well. But who else would allow them to hang around for that many years?
Of course.
And go through all the hard work and the verification, the routine of trying to, the red tape of finding out who he actually was.
Right.
And one of the greatest things he ever said was, "We gave him time." Yeah.
So maybe it isn't so much on what we think, which is the money part of it, and more so about the humane part of it.
You got it. One of the things I learned when I first come to the House of Mercy was how to be a people person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because actually, when you come right down to it, and I told the gentleman this just last week, we look around the mental illness and we look upon the homelessness that is out there in tents or whatever you're not. 75% of them come from suburbia.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah.
It
It's just
is.
amazing. Yeah, absolutely amazing. And do you find that the individuals that you house, let's say, for instance, when somebody comes to your organization and they're looking for help, are they kind of torn down and run down? And by that, I mean, obviously, I know that there's criteria for certain houses where you have to fit in a certain mold to get in there. Have they gone place to place to place, and you're kind of like the last safe haven, so to speak? That makes sense to you?
Most of the time, we're the last resort. What we take is what everybody else throws away.
Oh, no. That sounds horrid,
Yeah.
but I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Okay. Hence, of course, the 24/7 works amicably, certainly.
Right.
There's one more question I wanted to ask you, and then we'll get back to Sister Grace, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Me, for instance, I live in the state of Wisconsin, or other individuals that might be listening to this show. Are we capable of contributing something outside of donations? Meaning, like, if we want to volunteer, like, let's say we came into the city and we wanted to give a couple days' worth of time. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Is there ways that we can be more beneficial besides just a donation, even though that's important?
Yeah, if you take your feelers off the cuff and come in and accept people for the way they are, sure, there is.
Okay.
But I find that most people from the outside, as opposed to coming in and learning something about the individual, they come with their own ideas of how it should be, and they don't have a clue.
Okay. So kind of leave
sometimes
your
you just sit in and be a big brother to her or a big sister to someone in the community.
I've gotcha.
Right.
Do you also accept? And I forgot to ask this question. Like families, let's say an entire family comes with children, because I'm not sure about that actually. I guess I wanted to ask that question. What about children?
We've had that happen too with families with children, and as a matter of fact, well, the first year I was here at Central Park, on Hudson, my office became a family room.
Oh, really?
Because we had no other place to put them, and then the next day or the next few days, we found a place to accept them. But in the meantime, in an emergency situation, we do help them. Or otherwise, we send them to a hotel and pay for the hotel bill.
My goodness. How wonderful. I'm just in awe. My goodness. See, my gosh. Well, see, I can't talk today. I'm just I'm at a loss here. I'm so in awe of you. Mm-hmm. I'm just so in awe of the work that you do, CW. Thank you so much for your contributing to this interview and just taking some time to talk to me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Okay, and here's Sister Grace.
We can get back to Sister Grace. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Hello.
Hi. Okay, I'm back to you now. Thank you so much for that. I wanted to mention the House of Mercy. You're in downtown Rochester, and you maintain, as you mentioned, overnight operating hours, which means, of course, 24/7 that you're open. Your services are spread to, as I understand it, your services spread to in excess of over 4,000 people per month, but yet, sadly, I know that approximately over 100 homeless lose their lives each year. Now, I made this conclusion on my own that perhaps you were prompted to pursue solidifying shelter for these innocents was in part due to the fact that Rochester, New York, currently tops the list for extreme poverty. And I was shocked to hear that. Is that true? Really?
Yes.
I thought it would be nice if you could speak to our audience, maybe, because I don't live there, obviously, and most of us aren't in Rochester. Tell us a little bit about the current condition, or what are some of the circumstances which would warrant them saying this is just extreme poverty, period?
Well, we have where we're living right now here on Hudson Avenue. This is one of the most impoverished areas of the city, And we see people, that do not have, there's not enough housing for them. If they move into apartments, they don't have the income for them, and we have to help people get income. That's why we have so many people coming to us, because we work with them from wherever they are. And most people that come to us, and besides being a shelter, we do a lot of advocacy. And they started immediately because people were coming to us telling us that they were going to be evicted, they didn't have money for rent, their RG&E was going to be, electricity was going to be cut off because they couldn't afford it. Many people that when we first came didn't have phones, they weren't getting medical insurance, so they did not have the basics in life, food, shelter, and they were hungry. They didn't have those things. And we immediately had to get into the business of finding and helping our people to get on their feet. And I have to say, this was in 1985, and today we still have the same problem. Only it's worse. We're seeing where there was housing standing before, the houses are gone. They tear the houses down. Instead of, getting and fixing the houses so people could live in them, they're tearing the houses down. So we have many empty neighborhoods. And that's not helping our situation at all. And then you have, the drug dealers coming in and inhabiting the houses, few houses that are left. And as CW told you, many of our people have mental issues. In 1975 when they closed Psychiatric Center, they're out in the streets, and now their children are out in the streets. And we're finding that the mental health needs that they need are not given to them. We have many homeless that have mental issues, plus people in the neighborhood that come to us that have mental issues. So we pulled a group together of, the mental health department and some agencies and police who were working with the mentally ill. We pulled a group together, and we said we all need to work together because this issue is so great, and the mentally ill are not getting the help that they need. Well, we had several meetings, and the upshot of it all was, well, you're doing a great job. Keep it up. And that was the end of our meetings. The problems that our people have, are not really being met. You have, what they're getting in welfare is not enough. People are not able to get jobs and keep the jobs. If we get them into apartments, many of them, the apartment is the first time they've been in an apartment. They don't know how to live in the apartment, and they're evicted. So you have many problems that are deep-rooted problems. And we need people who will sit down, agencies that will sit down with the people and start where they are and try to lift them up from where they are. I mean, you mentioned the social problem. It's here in Rochester. The poverty rate here is horrible, and it's affecting, the schools. We have one of the worst school situations here, too. And we have children that have been coming to the House of Mercy, too, because they're in foster homes. They're not being well taken care of. And they come to the House of Mercy for help, just being here. And whoever walks into the House of Mercy, we take care of, whether it's an adult, whether it's a child, whatever. So we run the gamut of all the social problems, poor housing, lack of medical insurance, the psychological problems they have, the school issues they have. We have many adults who can't read or write, and they're embarrassed about it. They won't talk about it, so they'll come and tell us in the privacy of our office, I can't read, I can't write, but I don't want anyone to know about this.
Right.
And I had a young man that came in, he was about 21, and he said, nobody knows that I can't read or write. And he said, my mother will ask me what a word is, and I'll guess at it, but it's okay, because my mother can't read or write either. And then we also have the problem of people dying in their poverty, and many of them don't know what to do when they have a death in the family. And when we first opened up the House of Mercy, our plan was to help people live in dignity and lift them up, and we found out we were burying many of them. In 2 weeks we had 5 funerals. In 3 months we had 25 funerals. And people don't know what to do. And at that time, the county paid for the funerals, so we were able to have dignified burials for every person that came, for the families that came to us for help. And then in 2006, our county executive cut the funding for indigent burials. And now if a poor person wants to be buried instead of cremated, and many of them don't believe in cremation, they have to come up with almost $3,000 to be buried, and they don't have that kind of money. And so people are coming to us asking us to help them so they can bury a loved one rather than cremate the loved one. So the poverty here runs the gamut of, every aspect of their lives. And we have, and as far as the homeless situation is concerned, we have welfare has what we call after hours. So after 5 o'clock, if a person is homeless, they can call welfare and they're supposed to be placed. But if that person applied for welfare and was denied welfare, that person cannot be placed. So that person is still out in the streets, still homeless and with nothing.
Goodness. Okay. It's like a catch-22 no matter what you do here, really.
Oh, it is, and that's what we find ourselves in, and it continues and continues. There needs to be something to really get to the bottom of the poverty that's here in Rochester, and that's why we have many shootings, many killings, and problems, there are racial problems too, and the whole thing of the police and the blacks in the community, and there's also black-on-black killing. Right. All that's coming from someplace, and I don't think anything's been done to really speak not only to the problem of the police officer being killed, but who is sitting down talking to the people, to the youth who do the killings. I don't see that happening at all, and I think that there's a reason why they're killing. There's a reason why they're shooting. And I don't see anybody working in that area. And we would love to do it, but our hands are so full. But we do talk to people that come to House of Mercy. Pardon me?
Okay. And you have you only have so many hands and so many hours and so many things that you can do, clearly. You're only one person in an organization.
Right. But that's an area that really has not been explored. And I really think there are people in the community that can do this. Sit down, talk to the person who has a gun in his, not while he has a gun in his hand, but, why does he or she have a gun in his or her hand?
Right.
We run into problems. The thing I'm finding here is that when we talk with people, there were things that happened to them way back in childhood that they kept to themselves. Maybe they were molested, or they were treated harshly or abused, and they don't want to talk about it, so they keep it inside, for years and years and years, and one day they're going to explode.
Right.
So when we talk to people, we try to get them to look back at their past, their childhood. What happened in your childhood that's causing you to do what you're doing today? And many of them stop and they think and they realize, yes, I didn't speak to anybody about it. I was ashamed of it, all it was doing was building up within them. And when that goes on for years, you're going to have problems on the streets.
Of course. It makes perfect sense. I understand exactly what you mean. I want to ask you this question because you've been doing this for such a long time. Most of us, usually when we get involved in what I call a labor of love like this would be, was there one defining moment, one defining incident that happened where you just decided right then and there, this is what I have to do?
Well, it was when I was, as I explained earlier, I worked in the inner city for many years, and I saw many people, in spite of all the agencies that were here, were not really being helped, and they were in demonstrations trying to improve, society, and it wasn't working for all of them. But in the meantime, as I said, I saw people just hanging out on the streets with no one to care for them, and that struck me. But then on top of that were the times that I was taking them to homeless shelters, and the shelters refused them. Then I thought something is wrong in this society when homeless people have to be out in the cold, and no one will take them in. I mean, this is just inhumane, and it goes against everything I believe in terms of my own spirituality. And, the House of Mercy was founded on hospitality. Embracing the stranger, letting the stranger come in and talking to the stranger, finding a place for the stranger and making them feel at home. And we find that basically if we accept people where they are and they know we love them and we care for them, they'll come and they'll open up.
Exactly.
And I've heard many people say when we opened up the House of Mercy, we were here for years and nobody cared for us until you came. And that was proven when people... I can tell you of one incident where someone came to me and told me that a man was being evicted. Would I go visit him? And he was living in a room above a bar, and the owner of the bar was the landlord, and he said he would let the man stay there, but he'd have to get rent. Well, the man was inarticulate, illiterate, lame, couldn't get around. There was no way he was ever going to come up with rent. So I brought him, the first step to get him on his feet was welfare. So I brought him to the welfare office, and the person at the welfare office stood up after 5 minutes and said, "I can't help you." And I said, "Well, why not?" And she said, "Because he didn't have a birth certificate." Well, all his ID was burned in a fire. He didn't have anything on him. And I said to her, "Well, then, you're a helping agency. Can you help him to get his birth certificate?" And she said, "No. He'd have to get it himself." And there was no way that man on his own would ever have been able to get a birth certificate. And that was the beginning. I mean, if you're going to be able to get anything in society, you need an ID, you need a birth certificate, you need your Social Security card, a number, and he didn't have any of that. And this man was totally on his own, no one to help him. How was he going to get a birth certificate? He couldn't read or write. He was born down south. He'd have to write for it. He was penniless. So we had to start from scratch to help him get on his feet, and we did. And it took time. It takes time, but we don't give up on anyone. We work with them until they get what they need so they can continue on in their lives. And I talked about the people dying, and we got into burials, and we have many sad cases with the burials too. But whatever problem they have, that's what we're going to get ourselves into. And we're going to involve ourselves in those problems and work with the people until they can get on their feet. And that's true of the homeless right now that were put out of the Civic Center garage. And we begged the authorities to find a building before they put them out, and they refused, and they put them out. And that's why now we're involved with this larger homeless issue.
Right.
I don't know how much you know about all that.
Yeah, we're going to get into that, as a matter of fact. But first I wanted to cover, I know that throughout the last few years, the House of Mercy, I can't talk today, has innovatively pulled together different people and places, of course, to foster some of your funds. Some of these efforts you've done have included, like, dinner dances. You've done a 5K run. You've done a rummage sale. You've done your annual Christmas drive, and, of course, ROC the Day. A question for you. Do you notice oftentimes that do you do better in terms of with your cause if people come on their own initiative, or do you find that when you plan these events that they become more successful and that gets you closer to your goals?
Well, what we found from the very beginning was really by word of mouth. When people heard, when they saw what the House of Mercy was doing, individuals began to donate. And then we went to churches and we to talk, to ask for funding. And then we had our fundraising events. And as word spread, people liked what they came and they saw, and they liked what we did, and they like what we do. So most of our donations were coming from individual donors who just really liked our work. And they would come and say, "We want to support you," and some would come and volunteer. That's how we started our fundraising committee, with people who, one of the churches, liked what we were doing, and they got involved, and through them, other churches got involved, and then it spreads. So, and we have people working with us in our fundraising who are with us from the very beginning, because they know that we're working with the people that really do not have what they need to survive in this life. And so they trust us. There's a trust factor, too. And we don't go for federal funding or funding where we're being told how to spend our money, simply for the fact that if they tell us how to spend the money, we're not going to be able to spend it where we need to spend it on the people.
Certainly.
And we're probably one of the fewer missions that really spends most of our money on the needs of the people to get them on their feet. Yes.
Speaking of needs, I was just going to touch on that, actually. I know that I wanted to include some of the items, of course, that I've noticed that you've asked for most often being, of course, clothing, hand warmers, socks. You've got gloves, food, household items, and, of course, personal care items. So 2 questions relative to that. Are there any goods that you have to refuse, or do you basically take or accept any sort of donation?
We accept any donations that our people need. And here right now with the, we have our own homeless here at the House of Mercy. We have to take care of them. They have the same needs as the homeless that we're working with that were put out of the garage. So it's like double duty. But, the community has been very responsive, and they really are sending, gloves and warmers and blankets and sleeping bags and so we're able to take care of the homeless with all the donations that have come in. If it hadn't been for the donations coming in, well, we might be bankrupt now, because the need is so great. But in the wintertime, we need all those things. Now people are asking for boots. The homeless are asking for boots. They're walking around with shoes that are all worn out, sneakers that are all worn out. So, and there's a constant need for the gloves, the socks, the blankets, cots, sleeping bags, food. Since the issue of the homeless that were in the garage broke, the people in Rochester have been extremely generous in donating. We're getting cartons of supplies, and our homeless are benefiting from them. Plus, there's a campaign to raise money so we can find a building. We'll have to have a temporary building first, then a permanent building. But money has begun to come in, and it's really great because the budget, the House of Mercy's budget, can't handle all that.
Oh, certainly, of course, you certainly can't as far as that goes.
No.
Now, do you happen to have? There's people that are in or around your area that want to do a drop-off scenario, like we have Salvation Army here, et cetera. Can they just show up with boxes or whatever have you, or what is your process as far as
sure. Because we're open 24/7, so people can drop things off here anytime. Yes.
Okay.
And we welcome them. Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, great. Now, before we move on to the next thing, I wanted to ask you this, just your personal opinion. If you could speak on the stigma of, and this is nationwide, not just in your area, of the whole 9 times out of 10, people tend to shun and not support. So why is it that you think that people kind of cower when it comes to something they can't comprehend? Like, for instance, they'll see a homeless person and they won't understand the circumstances, et cetera. And I see this natural tendency to shun away. Any thoughts on why?
Well, I think it's sad, but there is too much judging going on. If you have not walked in somebody's shoes, don't judge that person. The thing I keep hearing more and more from the homeless is, I'm a human being. I have needs. I'm a human being. Mm-hmm. And many of them feel that they're not being treated like human beings. There's an image thing. A homeless person looks homeless, might not dressed well, maybe hasn't been able to shower for a long time, and people make their judgments. But it's not. I think people have the idea that homeless people want to be homeless. For the most part, no, they do not want to be homeless. Just the other night, we picked up a person. Luckily, we ran into him. He was put out of a shelter, and he was worried about where he was going to go because he had no place to go. So we brought him to the shelter we have now, and he was ecstatic. And he's still there, and he's ecstatic and just, really relieved. People make judgments when they really don't understand what a person is going through. The first thing is love and acceptance, the way people are. And that's all the homeless really want, to be accepted. Now, we have to understand that there are some homeless that have been homeless for years. There are many that have mental issues. And there's some that just want to be left alone. And they've been that way for years, so we're not going to change them. And we have to accept them where they are. Here at the House of Mercy, we have 2 people who come, homeless men that come. They're out during the day, and at night they come. They don't socialize. They have a spot that's theirs. Everyone else respects their spot, and they can come and go. There's no place else they're going to go. Who else would accept them? So we're trying to get people to fit into a society, but I think, first of all, we have to see where they're coming from. Some of the problems here are that, they want to put homeless into apartments or housing first, which is good. But some of our people are not ready for that, and it's going to take more time to prepare them for that. And I think that, the judgments made on them are not fair until they can sit down and talk to a homeless person and realize where this person is coming from. And maybe this person applied for a job and they couldn't find a job. Maybe the person has mental issues. Maybe something happened in his background that has made him this way. It's not all their fault. And I think we need to make room in our society for people who are homeless and try to come to understand why they are homeless, why they are the way they are, and accept them as they are. If we don't accept them, we'll never be able to help them.
Excellent point. Absolutely excellent. Now, before we get towards the Sanctuary Village conversation, I wanted to cover I know you have a different barrage of benefits, and I want to mention to people, I know you have a summer camp for children. You offer spiritual services, advocacy assistance, and, of course, food, clothing, and shelter, and something you call the Fear Bridge Health Ministry, which is, of course, aiding the individuals who are in serious substance abuse recovery.
Right.
Maybe if you could just summarize in short on a couple of different ones here and just kind of go a little more in depth into what exactly people can expect in working with the House of Mercy as far as these services go.
Well, one thing that has happened here is maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, children started to come to this our homeless shelter, and we, I noticed that in particular with one family, 2 children, 3 and 5 years old, were living with a foster grandmother, and but they were here all day long, from morning until night. And I thought, something is wrong. Why are they here all day long, eating here? And, not that we didn't want them, but I thought something is wrong with that situation. And when I checked it out, I found out that that family had been living in a home without electricity for 1 full year, 1 solid year.
Gosh.
No electricity, and little children were in that house.
Oh, God.
So we told the child protective workers, and they said, well, it wasn't serious enough to do anything about it. So we, the House of Mercy, paid for their electricity so they could get it on. And, of course, the wires were bad because it was over a year, that they hadn't had anything. So we finally got them on there, got the electricity turned on. And then I was thinking, well, they should be in school, preschool.
Right.
And the grandmother said, well, they, by law, they don't have to be in school until they're 6 years old, but, there's such a thing as preschool. So I ignored what she said, and I went to the city school district, and I found out what they needed to get in school, and we went around town, the city, doing everything we needed to get them in school, and we got them in school, and the children love school. But they wouldn't have been in school, preschool, if we had not, taken the effort to get them in school.
Right.
And, we're still working with them, still working with the children, still working with the families. It's amazing the children that come here.
Sure.
And, they have their problems at home, but they're still coming here, and we accept them and we work with them.
Well, certainly. Spiritual services, what do you offer in that particular regard?
Well, we have Bible studies every Wednesday night. We have the liturgy, the Mass. We call the Mass every Sunday at 12 o'clock, and we have a priest from Rochester coming in, a Basilian priest and diocesan priest, and we'll probably have a Jesuit priest coming in, taking turns on Sundays so that we have our liturgy, and we have the liturgy right in our lounge, which is where people are free to walk in any time of the day, and feel at home. And we have our liturgy there, and I love it there because our homeless are there, and if we didn't have the liturgy there, they might not even have any services, any spiritual services. And they love it. They really love it, and we love it too, and the priests that come in love it too, and they're very devoted and really go out of their way to accept our people the way they are and let them pray the way they pray, and it's a beautiful thing to see. And at Christmas we have... when we have the liturgy, it's almost like being in Bethlehem, in the manger, with Christ in the manger, being in, like in a stall where they have animals and the poverty. What I'm trying to say is the poverty that is there, that was there when Christ was born. We have that poverty here. We can feel it, we can.
Sure.
But it's spiritualized, and people love it. And the people will walk in and come to the liturgy, whereas they wouldn't do it in an organized church. But because our doors are always open, they'll walk in. And it's amazing how they'll pray. And we have when we opened up the House of Mercy, I remember we used to have the liturgies on Fridays. And I remember a man coming in every Friday before we even started. The chairs would be up, and he would come in and sit down. And every Friday he was there. He wouldn't speak to anyone, but every Friday he knew we were having a liturgy, and he was there. And this went on for a while, and then one day we didn't see him anymore. And the man had passed away. And I thought he was preparing himself. He was preparing himself to get right with God, and I was grateful that he could at least feel free and comfortable to come, if not to anything else, at least to come to the liturgy that we offered.
Right.
And then we celebrate occasions like Martin Luther King's birthday, and we spiritualize them, any celebrations that we have, and we'll be celebrating Black History Month, and we have our people help to organize it, and we spiritualize those events. And then we have counseling. People need counseling. We offer that. And if they want to speak to a minister or a priest, we can arrange that. We offer what they need, I think.
It sure sounds like it. It's very well-rounded, actually. I was curious to ask you, now, I'm assuming that you're well enough known, but, do you do this mostly often by referrals? Or do you get referrals, I should say?
Listen, the homeless that come to the House of Mercy, they're sent. Hospitals will send them to us. They'll call us. Hospitals will send them to us. Police bring them to us. Other agencies send them to us, and they walk in. So many people are referred to us by other agencies, as far as the homeless are concerned, and also for rent. We have many people coming to us for rent and for utility help with their utilities, because if they go to other agencies and they refuse, as CW said earlier, we're a last resort. And what we do is we absorb the red tape so that our people don't have to go through all the red tape to get the help that they need. We'll absorb it so, that we can help them get on their feet.
Makes sense. Perfect. I gotcha. Okay. Next question I want to ask you is, I've heard you say in an interview, and I absolutely love this point that you were making, which you said was it's hard to place the homeless. In case people don't know, well, for one, obviously, city zoning has made it very challenging to do so. Secondly, as I mentioned earlier, shelters at times carry a certain criteria for temporary residency. They'll accept you, only certain things. So if you could just kind of give more of a well-rounded answer there in terms of why it's so difficult. You've got the zoning, you've got that. What are all the factors that are involved? Why is it so difficult to just have, person A, B, C say, here, we're going to give you a building, shelter these people? Makes sense. Well,
here in Rochester, of course, there are the zoning laws that the city has, and that they don't allow homeless people in them. So when we're looking for a building, the first thing we're going to encounter is, we don't allow homeless here. The other thing is the city has what's called Center City. And Center City, and here in Rochester, they're building, all the new buildings are going up, all the new businesses are going up, and new apartments, lofts that cost, thousands of dollars. So the poor people are being pushed out. And the downtown area is really being prepared for people really who have money. So what they're saying, with the way we read Center City and homeless not being allowed, in these buildings in Center City, is not in my backyard. And that is a horrible thing. And the homeless really are downtown. And that's why we want a building downtown, because that's where they are. We don't want them, 5 miles away where nobody, it's like get them out of sight. And that's what it all means. Not in my backyard, get the homeless out of sight, they don't exist. Well, we're saying they do exist and they're downtown. And we need to treat them like human beings. We need to treat them with respect, and we need to find a warm, safe place for them. And while they're in this building, working with them, giving them, the services that they need, to help them get on their feet. We're not saying they stay there forever, but, there are some people that, might be there for a long time. But the majority of the people, you can move on. So all we're saying is Rochester needs a home, a building for the homeless who are in the Civic Center garage, who for many reasons can't live in an apartment, but with the help, with the trust factor, we can help them move in. What the county has been saying is that we can put all of them in shelters or housing, and the county is proud of what they're doing, and they do put some, in housing, but there is that hard-to-place population. They're the ones we're talking about. And if someone comes to them and tells them, here, you can go into shelter, and they think, okay, they can go in tonight, but tomorrow they're out, they're not going to go. Or if they're going to be put in a hotel for a few days and know that, 3 days later they're going to be put out, they're not going to go. And, some of the rules people are not accustomed to. We're not saying no rules. What we're saying is relax the rules so that people can come and go as they please, as long as it's safe, it's warm, and they have food. It's not dangerous. This can happen if those in authority will put their minds to it. It can happen.
Right. All right.
You can't say, well, I don't like the statement that, well, if they don't want our help, then they can stay out there. Leave them alone. That's not what we're called to do. We're called to take care of the ones who cannot take care of themselves, who need extra help, who need more time.
Correct. Absolutely. And do you find that the location that you're at right now, if you move to a downtown location, let's say, the safety factor, does it become safer when you're downtown as compared to where you are right now?
I'm sorry, say it again.
No, that's okay. Meaning if you actually had a location where you could have downtown, like in downtown Rochester is what you're aiming for, is that a safer neighborhood as compared to where you're working out of right now? Is it going to be safer for individuals?
Yes. The neighborhood we're in now is a high drug area, and we have to deal with that too. And there are a lot of poor people here, but downtown would be safer.
Okay, I gotcha.
It'd be much better for the homeless because they would have places they could go for food. And there are places that are open for showers, and they're all located downtown. And to put them in an outlying area would not be beneficial to them at all. It would, in fact, would make it harder on them. And we do not want to see them out in the cold.
Of course. Of course, no one does. Or at least you would think no one does, obviously.
You would think that, but, why are we having such a hard time finding a building,
Right.
We're looking now into a temporary building until we can find a permanent building. And right now our people are in, there's one church that has opened up and they're taking 15 people. But we're anxious to get into a temporary building where we could take in 50 people,
Right, of course. And that takes a much bigger area. And, of course, people tend to forget things like gas, electric, the basic necessities to run a business, telephone, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not cheap, even if it's for,
we're going to need money for all that, right. Yeah.
Of course, certainly. I've got you. Okay, I want to tell the listening audience about Sanctuary Village because both you and I want to go and do a little background here in case people don't know what happened exactly.
Okay.
There's a location called Sanctuary Village. Some people refer to it as Tent City. There was approximately 42 people that were living there in this grouping of tents, which is located in Washington Square Park. 5 days before Christmas, December 20th, unfortunately, permission was granted by the city to go in and basically bulldoze the area, which meant basically, in effect, bringing a bulldozer in and literally taking the tents and everything and putting the personal items into a dumpster. Apparently, the citizens were offered hot meals in a hotel for 2 days, which is a ploy, of course, to get them out of there, I would gather. So a couple different questions relative to this. First off, the individuals that were there originally, did any of them recover any of the property that they lost that day?
Well, we were told that what they bulldozed, their property was going to be put into cartons, boxes. But, when they bulldozed, the ground was wet. Everything they had in the tents were wet. They were bulldozed, and so some people lost their ID. And when they went to get, not many of them, but a couple were trying to get their ID, but it was all buried in, in these cartons with mud and, wet blankets and things like that. So none of them really recovered any of their belongings.
So it's just all basically gone. I guess that's one big question I wanted to ask because I posted a video up for people to watch, but it's different. I'm gathering you were there the day that this occurred, I assume?
Yes.
On site? Okay. Just take us there a little bit and talk to us about the reactions of the individuals that were there. It must have been very somber, very upsetting. I can only imagine what it would have been like to be there.
Well, it was. It was extremely upsetting. We didn't know what was going to happen. And when we went there, we stood in front, a few of us stood in front of the tents that were still standing so that they would not be bulldozed. But they had already bulldozed others. And we were able to put a stop to it, I think, that way. But when some homeless came back later and their tents were gone, they lost all their little belongings they have, plus their ID. And that really hit them hard and hit us hard, because it takes a while to get your ID, which means birth certificate,
right.
ID, Social Security card, all that, Medicaid. And so they were really hurt by that. And, it was interesting. One person said, he lost everything in the tent. And believe it or not, they loved their tents. It was their space, their home. And he said there was a Christmas tree that was there. And he lost his tent. And he said, but, when the Christmas tree was gone, I cried. There was something about that Christmas tree being there, in Sanctuary Village. But, it was hard to see them. I mean, they stood there shocked because when they left, they came back expecting to find a tent there, and their tents were gone.
Right.
Their belongings were gone, what little belongings they had, and their ID. So it was very, very hard. And, since then we've been able to work with the city, and now the city is helping us to move into a temporary building. They're helping us with the fire code, and the heating and whatever is required for our people to be safe in this shelter, in this building, which is a loading dock. But at least it'll have heat, it'll be warm, and the city is helping us to, properly set the place up so that we're in code, that we're not in any kind of violation. And they should be ready, hopefully, within a week or two.
Oh, wow. Okay. I've got you. One of the things that crossed my mind today was, did the city issue any form of a public apology?
No. I'm not aware of any apology that was...
Okay. It just crossed my mind because that's one of the things I thought to myself was, shouldn't somebody issue some sort of an apology to these people? They may not have very much.
Well, you would, yes, you would think so, but nothing. There was no public apology. The one good thing that happened out of this was we were talking with the mayor of the city, and they are willing to work with us to get this building set up. And we're grateful for that help because we're at least temporarily going to be able to put people in a building, a warm building, a safe building, and it'll be well supervised through the winter and maybe for 3, 4, 6 months, whatever we need until we find a permanent building. But we're going to need the city to help us to find a permanent building, and the county really should be helping us with this. The New York State Constitution says that the state is responsible for all the poor in the state, and that responsibility is delegated to the county. So the county has a responsibility here, but they feel that they're doing their job by putting people in shelters and hotels, and if they don't go, then don't bother with them. But we're trying to tell the county, but that's the population you have to work with.
Right.
So the ones who stepped forward in helping us to find a building was the city, but the county has yet to come forward.
Okay, so unfortunately you still have some opposition, or you still have some non-cooperation out there on the behalf of these
from the county
entities.
From the county, right?
Okay, I've got you. Do you feel in some ways that some people's perception is, or their individuals is kind of, for lack of a better term, I guess eyesore is the way to put it, because I know it's been phrased that way in other areas and places before. Like,
that's
get
how
rid
they
of
look
it,
upon the
make
homeless.
it look pretty.
Oh yeah, it's definitely got that eyesore out of here. We've had instances, and this is a national problem too, not just a local one here. It's national, where homeless would be outside, and the police would come along and move them. And where they're going to go just from one spot to another. So there's a national thing of trying to make the homeless invisible. But we're not going to tolerate that here. We're not going to allow the homeless to be invisible. And I think that's what everyone needs to work towards. They are human beings, and they need not be judged by the way they look. And it is, the image. People don't like the image. And the interesting thing is the ones making these judgments are people that have comfortable homes. They have jobs, they have food on their table, and yet they're going to deprive a homeless person of help because they think they're shiftless, they can't get a job, that they should be working, but that's not the way it is. And if they really think that way, then they should sit down and talk to homeless people to find out for themselves, exactly what their homeless person has gone through. And when you listen to their lives, you can understand where they're coming from. Some of them have given up on society, almost ready to give up on life, but we don't want them to do that. The resources are there. The resources are there to help our homeless. And the county has a responsibility to help the homeless, not only if they'll listen to the county workers, but even if they won't listen to them. The first thing they need to do is develop their trust. We can work with people because they trust us. If a stranger from the county comes and says to a homeless person, we'll put you in this hotel or put you in this place, they won't even listen to them because they don't know them, they don't trust them. So the trust element has to be developed. And that only happens by talking to them and being with them and getting time to know them and understand them. And the other side of this, too, is that, families that have homeless people, are worried about them, where they are. Are they being taken care of for some reason and they're not home with them? But we have to care and take care of the least of our society. That's what Jesus, where would Jesus be today? I know that's right where the people are hurting the most, because in the Bible, in Scripture, that's where Jesus was. We're the ones that nobody else bothered with, those who are being judged, put aside, ostracized. They're the ones we have to reach out to, and that's our calling. And I believe it's every person's calling.
I agree.
If they listen to the Spirit within. Pardon me?
I have a question. Now, if I know at one time you had been encouraging individuals to write to the city or to the county, et cetera. Should they continue to be doing so?
Yes. Write to the city, write to the county, and remind them of their responsibility to take care of the most vulnerable in our society. Yes. Because, the money is there. The question is, where is the money going? The money is there.
Sure.
Yes. And I think that more people in the community can do that.
One of the last questions that I have for you, which I know crosses the mind of so many people, and it's a very realistic question to ask, because all of us, I believe, on some level, or at least most of us, have a spiritual base. And most of us at one point in time have said, there's a person with cancer, there's a child that's dying, and how does God allow this to happen? Have you ever looked at that? Have you ever questioned that in your own mind and said, how can God let his children suffer like this? And I know others have felt that, and maybe you can address that a little bit. Is that the right way, the wrong way?
Yeah. Well, I believe, that wherever there is suffering, first of all, Christ suffered on earth and gave up his life for all of us. Suffering is a part of life. It's very hard to see suffering. It's very hard to see a child suffering with cancer, anyone really. It's very hard to face death. Those are the trials of life. But I do believe that in every circumstance, God is present. And if we turn to God, God is going to take care of that person, that individual, and everyone else around them. God is not leaving us alone. God is here with us. We see many miracles here at the House of Mercy here in Rochester. And it's because God is present with us. And I want to say, the work I do, I firmly believe is not my work, but it's God's presence, working through us here at the House of Mercy. I could never do this. I never ever dreamt I could have done it. But it's God who's working through us. I have to give it all to God. And it's working with the Spirit, the Spirit of God within us, who moves us to do what we must do. And we have to listen to that Spirit. Wherever there is suffering, God is present. God has not abandoned anyone. We just need to turn to that God who loves and cares. And very often we have to be the ones to assure people that God is here, God is present, God has not deserted you, God is going to take care of you, God is taking care of you. We cannot do this without God's help. It would be impossible. And that's why if you don't have money, you see miracles happen. I mean, how does that happen? When I started the House of Mercy, I was given $20,000. I didn't, that first year was $33,000 by the time we got money in. But I could never have done that on my own. I wouldn't even have dreamt of that,
Sure.
So you move with the Spirit of the Lord within you. Where the Lord calls you, you go. And most of us have that. We have that voice of God within us that tells us, do this or do that, go here or go there. That's the voice we have to listen to. But I want to say that wherever there's suffering, God is present. We are never alone.
And we all need to remember that, actually, because I think most of us question at some point in time at our lowest moments, are we alone? And is there someone listening to us? It's a beautiful, wonderful reminder.
there is, and that's where our faith comes in. And if we feel our faith is weak, then pray for stronger faith.
Definitely.
Because God loves and accepts all of us just the way we are. And we shouldn't lose sight of that fact.
Beautiful
I've heard
word.
people say,
Absolutely.
I let God down. God doesn't love you. Oh, yes, God does love you. You haven't let God down. God will never give up on you. God is there. God is present. And we need to hold on to that.
Yes, we do, especially nowadays, the way things are. Oh, my gosh, we could go on and on about that. My goodness.
I look at society now, and I think it's going to get worse, and I think, we can't give up hope. There's faith and there's hope and there's love, and, God is in all of it. We cannot give up because God is present. And God will work through each one of us if we allow God to do that. Just being open to the voice of God within us.
I would agree with that. I would. Now, I want to do 3 more things, and then I will let you get back to your job because certainly what you do is very, very important. I don't want to keep you away from there too long. I want to mention this so that everybody listens to this. I'm just going to name off the various ways that I've found you, or where people can find you, I should say, on social media and otherwise. You have a website, www.houseofmercyrochester.org. There's a Twitter account that I found out about today, which is and that's House of Mercy, ROC. Where I found you, which is your Facebook page, the House of Mercy, Rochester, New York. Obviously, they can see interviews and other materials on YouTube and Vimeo, Vimeo. And then, of course, obviously, you have goods that people can purchase on Amazon.com, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Right. Have I missed anything, or is there any other way?
The GoFundMe. If there's the GoFundMe. Yeah.
Okay.
And that money is coming in for the homeless, for the building, for the staffing and things that we need to do to get the house underway and going.
Gotcha. Okay, that takes care of that. Now we just have 2 more things to do. I'm going to have you be quiet for just 30 seconds, and I'm just going to read my overall impression of you because that's typically the status quo on this show. As I always tell my guests what I think and kind of give a quick overall to the people that are listening about you. Sister Grace, you stand strong and self-willed to conquer the challenges brought about in battling the horrors of homelessness. For 79 years, and yes, that's right, she doesn't sound like it, but she is 79 years old, she surely has the spirit and the stout-heartedness of a girl going on 30 years of age. You are never fearful to fight, and you've been shackled by handcuffs, you've pounded the pavement to protest, and you've always suggested new sources to find homes for the homeless. You look into the eyes of the impoverished and you see their soul and their spirit, and you work to gain just a smile and to give them some solace. You are incessantly devout to your desire to preserve the dignity and the dreams of your flock. And lastly, and most importantly, I am personally in awe of the fact that God graced us with the mortal model of an angel, and that, of course, being Sister Grace. I am truly of the belief that human angels walk this earth, and there's no better definition of that than you. And I am certain of that, with all certainty. And because of that, I had a conversation with Ashley. Ashley Papp, of course. I don't want to forget to mention her. The whole reason you and I collaborated together is because Ashley's kind help.
Right.
So I've approached Ashley, and I approached her about doing the radio show because I wanted to get you exposure. But in conversation between the two of us, I've come up with this idea. So I want to just throw this out as the last thing that we discuss on the show. And before I forget to tell you, this will be archived when we get done, and I'll post it up on all your pages so everybody can go back and listen to this show. And hopefully everybody in New York and the surrounding areas are listening. So this is what I've come up with, and this is what I'd like to offer me to you. I was very moved in speaking to Ashley and in her conversations with me about you, watching the videos, and I am very, very big on activism myself. And when I'm touched by a cause and I feel that I can do something about it, I choose to. So on the 27th of this month, I'm coming to New York, and I want to say it's going to be the 28th or the 29th. I'm going to be holding an event, and at that event, we're going to try to raise the remaining $30,000 that you need for your
aren't
building.
you wonderful? Aren't you wonderful?
And what I'm doing, well, I'm not done. So what we're going to do is we're going to have an event. I'm very blessed because what I do for a living allows me to meet celebrities. So, of course, I'm going to hold an event in Jersey where we're going to have celebrities, etc. Hopefully, we're going to bring people in the door in masses, in which case they can come in, and then, of course, we can give you the proceeds from that. We can give you the profits from events that will be there, etc. to bring it one step further, instead of flying, I'm going to drive down there because I've often wondered why it is that why all these boxes in my basement have been sitting here, and that's because they're full of clothing, and that's because I've had nowhere to take them until now.
Oh.
So my goal is I'm bringing you donations of my own household, and then I'm going to put up an event page today where all of my friends in New York can give me donations to bring to your facility as well. So I'm hoping by the end of this month you will have $30,000 plus. You will have all sorts of donations.
This is overwhelming.
Well, you cannot be the only person who carries the load here, and I am so blessed, and there are so many people in New York City that either don't know about this, and I'm also very fortunate that I'm very involved with the biker community, and so we're going to be getting some donations, and we'll be doing some auctioning off. I'll be putting myself up for auction. So I'm going to work on this till the end of this month, and then I will come and bring this to you. And as overwhelming as it is for you, I'll just share a little secret with you. Two of the closest people to me, my best friend is dying, and my son has an illness, and it's an illness that I can't fix right now. I'm kind of caught in limbo to helping them. So in some way, you always try to look to pay it forward. So this is my attempt to try to help this woman on the other end of the phone so it doesn't have to be so hard for you.
God love you, Cindy. Man, I'm overwhelmed. I mean, really, those are beautiful words.
No.
You're like a gift from heaven.
Well, no, actually, I'm speaking to that. All I'm doing is trying to make it a little bit easier for you. And my friends are very gracious, very lovely individuals. And I do hope that at least in some small way we're able to at least take the burden away from you. And I know it's an ongoing process, and certainly the next time, I would like to, the next time I come back to New York, because it's going to be so limited when I get to this month, I would like to come back, and I'd like to spend a day there, and I'd like to see your facility, and I'd like to walk, and I'd like to volunteer, and just kind of see and meet people and try to get to the core, because it's one thing to interview you, but I don't know any of the faces or the names, and I don't know anyone that you see or who you deal with. And I have a soft spot for children especially. And so, it's instrumental that, people lend a hand when they can, if they come down, if they see it, that they bring exposure to it, definitely. In case, and I don't know, hopefully this won't come with too much opposition, but I'm going to contact the media, and I'm going to make it abundantly clear to your city and your county that someone from out of state has come into town and has orchestrated all of this. And without prompting, I opted on my own to do this. And if I can go off and do this,
God love it.
Your city can take care of itself, and it should take care of itself.
That's right.
Hopefully, that this will give them the push that they need, where they can say, "Oh, look, somebody actually did this." I don't know, I can't guarantee it, but I'm surely going to give it my best shot. I am.
Oh, thank you. I can't thank you enough, Cindy.
Oh,
I can't thank you enough. God bless you.
This has been a blessing, just being able to talk to you, and certainly know this much. If you ever need help again, or if there's something I can do beyond it, and certainly Amber and I are trying to work out the logistics of after the event getting to you. So, I'm sure that I'll end up getting to you in the tail end or at the beginning of my trip, and I'm not sure if I'll get back to you, but I'll at least try to throw my face in there to say hello to you in person. But if anything comes up, another event or something, I would just like to be able to let you know that you can come back here anytime you like.
Oh, thank you so much, Cindy. Really, it's been wonderful.
No,
thank you. I really am grateful to you.
It really has been my pleasure, certainly. And like I said, within the hour or so, I'll post up the information so people will get a chance to see. They'll find out, they'll listen to your interview. I'll post the same information, and then this way then we can get this out to as many people as possible. I know you're in Rochester, and of course I'll be in Jersey doing this, but you never know. I mean, we'll get the word out as much as we can, and I'll be doing some regular I'll do a couple TV appearances, etc., and we'll stay in touch. But I'm sorry I kept you so long. I know you have to get back to
no, that was
do,
perfectly all right. No. Yeah, well, thank you so much. I appreciate all this.
Oh, wonderful. God bless you, and I will be seeing you in a couple weeks.
God bless you, too. Yes.
Thank you, sister. I'll see you soon.
Okay, well, thank you, and God bless you.
All right, take care, dear.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Folks, that was Sister Grace. I am just in awe. Like I said, Sister Grace Miller, of course, she runs the House of Mercy. In case you're interested and you weren't aware of the information about Sanctuary Village, both are located on Facebook. Also, again, the Twitter handle at House of Mercy, ROC. Their videos and interviews can be located on YouTube or Vimeo, www.houseofmercyrochester.org. And then, of course, Amazon.com is the place where you can go and actually buy, purchase, or donate materials to the House of Mercy. Once again, thank you so much to Sister Grace. Thank you so much to Ashley Pat for all of her help and coordination in this, and of course for materials and anything else that she's doing to help this. I really appreciate all the time and the effort that's been put into this. Luckily, that's it for me this week as far as radio goes. We'll see you next week. Make sure to watch the wall for the upcoming episodes. You guys have a great weekend.
What you doing?
Ran out of space on my phone, so I'm deleting some stuff. By singing dog. By goal.
I pronounce you.
By wedding ceremony.
Stop. At Metro PCS, you get 2 free phones with twice as much memory.
Really?
Don't say bye to your memories. Switch to Metro PCS and get 2 free LG K20 Plus phones with 32 gigs when you switch 2 lines. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figure it out. Coverage not available in some areas. Sales tax not included in phone price. Excludes numbers on the T-Mobile network. See store for details and terms and conditions.
What you doing?
Ran out of space on my phone, so I'm deleting some stuff. By singing dog. By goal.
I pronounce you.
By wedding ceremony.
Stop. At Metro PCS, you get 2 free phones with twice as much memory.
Really?
Don't say bye to your memories. Switch to Metro PCS and get 2 free LG K20 Plus phones with 32 gigs when you switch 2 lines. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figure it out. Coverage not available in some areas. Sales tax not included in phone price. Excludes numbers on the T-Mobile network. See store for details and terms and conditions.